Social media can be both a excellent tool for building your author platform and also a headache in itself. But it allows authors to connect with readers, promote their work, and build a personal brand. Build a personal brand. In today's world, having an online presence is an important part of reaching a wider audience and establishing a voice. It's also like back in the day, everybody had that hanger on their TV and a child turning the knob. Well, now everybody has social media. In this video, we're going to cover 10 social media tips for authors that will help you use these platforms effectively. These tips are designed to make your online presence more engaging, consistent, and aligned with your writing. 10 social media tips for authors to build an audience. Number 1, know your audience. Yes, knowing and understanding your audience will help you create content that connects with them more honestly, more truthfully. Are your readers a young adult, fantasy enthusiasts, or fans of historical fiction? That might be important to you. It might not be. Tailor your posts to match the interests of the people you want to connect with. This ensures that you're sharing something that is relevant and engaging for your readers. Now, more importantly, it shouldn't be, hey, my readers like, epic fantasy, or my readers like whatever. It's about what it is that you are solving for your audience, and that becomes knowing your audience. So that's why if, your audience is like, I only like epic fantasy. All right, well, now you're solving that problem. So you're posting epic fantasy stuff. So it might be news on it or history or maybe stuff about your book, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth is knowing your audience, right, is about understanding how your brand connects with their needs. All right. It's not about changing your brand to connect with their needs. It's about how your brand, right, and knowing the audience and how your brand connects with their needs. All right. Because the solution, because every business needs to have something that is a solution to a problem that the audience needs. Right. So when you think your brand, think about your missions, your purpose, your morals, what is your image, all these things, and how is that going to connect with your audience? And that's where it starts. So you know your audience. So if your brand, just as an arbitrary example, when it comes to being an author, let's ignore the book though. That's the important part. Ignore the book. But let's say you, as an author, your brand is about not necessarily making the stories like a preachy message about helping one another, but it's something that's very much prevalent in your stories, is that, your characters, people who help one another prosper in your stories, when people that don't, who are selfish, fall flat on their face. If that theme is somewhat in your books, all of them or something like that, and that's just something that's important to you, is about showing like people helping one another, right? Maybe that's something you also post on social media. You share stories of people helping one another. So you'll share, like if someone writes a tweet and it's like, oh, hey, to all the authors out there who are making it difficult or having a difficult time, remember that we're supporting one another, and remember to reach out to your circle because we're always here to protect you. And then you're like, oh, well, that resonates with me. That has to do with helping one another. So I'm going to share that and then add a thought to it, going, this is one of the things that keep me motivated. I love seeing this in our community. It's all about helping one another. So now your audience is going to see that, and they're going to connect, especially the audience, sees that and goes, oh, that's definitely, I want to support this author because they care about stuff that I care about. And that creates your community. And then once they realize that stuff is in your books as well, they're going to be like, oh, wow, these are things I care about. However, there should be more than one theme in your book. There should be more than one thing you're saying in your book. But I talk about it often on this channel, where it's like your novel should be saying something more than just things happening. It should be an extension of a message, an extension of purpose, an extension of thought. Novels should get you thinking, either about your life, about things. It could be even something small, like connecting with a father or a mother, whatever it is, it just makes you think about those things, and that's what the empathy is for readers, where they're like, oh, I love the mother-daughter relationship here, or I love the father-daughter relationship, or whatever. So that's something that knowing your audience is important for, because it allows you to say, what is it about me and my brand that I could represent that will connect with the audience that I'm trying to connect with. All right. And once you figure that out, you want to be consistent, because consistency is key. So this is between posting consistently and then posting your brand's message consistently. Now, if you consistently post, buy my book, or my book is out, or you beg people to buy the book, or you say this book is great, you should really buy this book. I don't know why people aren't buying this book. This book is so good. Could you tell me what I could say to help sell this book? You tell me what I can say to sell this book, because no one is buying. I need people to buy. Like, if you consistently do that, you're going to do two things. It's called pushing, by the way. You're going to push people away, and you're going to push an agenda. It's all about empathy. It's all about representing your truth and presenting your brand. You're consistently presenting your mission, your message, your thoughts, the things that matter to you. You can still talk about your book, though, but talk about it in a sense that isn't necessarily buy my book, but your process of the book, right? So whatever it is you're going to post, be consistent about that message, be consistent about the image, and be consistent with the conversation. And the conversation is how audiences are responding to that message. If the conversation is not consistent with what you're trying to represent, you know that you have to adjust things to make sure they are seeing you as you wish to be seen. And you should be wishing to be seen truthfully, but it doesn't, like, for example, I'm religious, but I don't talk about religion on social media, in the sense of, like, I don't talk about my religion. I may talk about religion, like the idea of faith, but I won't push my faith or talk about my faith on social media. Same thing with politics. I try to avoid the politics conversation. So just because that's a truth to me, it doesn't mean it's a part of my brand, because that's not my audience. I'm not trying to connect with political people or religious people. I'm trying to connect with people that fit my other qualities, that fit the other things that are important to me. From Team Rise Together, my efforts with Team Rise Together, the nonprofit where it's work, grow, rise together, to how I believe in community, how I believe in we should help one another, how I believe in unmasking the misconceptions of our industry, and how people are misled or guided for sales and not necessarily to prosper. For example, in the acting community, it's always been, you need headshots and a reel, but you're just starting out. Like, your acting isn't good enough for a reel, and your headshots are going to change every 6 months. What you should be focusing on in the beginning is network, market, practice, build, cultivate relationships, develop your brand and market that so people understand who you are, because networking is about who you know, marketing is about who knows you and remembers you, and then practicing is understanding and learning your industry. And it's the same thing with everything. It's the same thing with writing. It's the same thing with music. It's the same thing with a business. It's always about building relationships, getting those relationships to remember you and see your talents and skills and value sets, and then, of course, learning the industry. But those are things that I talk about. I hate misconceptions being pushed. I hate when people are misled. So it's your job to be consistent with the message that is important to you, and whatever that is. It's about posting it consistently, and it's about maintaining a consistent tone. A very important element of the social media experience is sharing behind the scenes content. If you've seen The Rock and Kevin Hart, whenever they did films, they would always film like them being silly behind the scenes, well on set. That's an example behind the scenes. But people love watching. Here's the thing I used to always say to my clients. I used to go, people want to see you succeed. They just don't want to hear about it. Okay. But they want to see you succeed. They don't want to hear about it. So there's a difference between, like, let's say you're a writer and you live in the city and you're on the subway and you take a picture of yourself, and in the caption you talk about like what community you go, I'm going off to a networking event that one of my writer buddies mentioned the name. told me about. I'm so grateful that I am in a community that helps other authors meet one another. That is behind the scenes of people wanting to see you succeed. You're showing the process, the adventure. But if you're like, I just signed with an agent, like your friends and family are going to be excited for you. And then of course your haters are going to be like, yes, yeah, great. You got an agent, right? However, if you talk about, I just came out of a meeting with an agent, this is my first meeting with them, the first meeting with an agent ever. It's taken me so long to get to this point. I'm just grateful that I had this opportunity. That's showing. That is the adventure. But if you're like, I signed someone, people are like, they become haters, right? So they like to see the behind the scenes. They like to see your adventure. They like to even see your process of failing to succeed. So if you wrote something and you're like, I'm on my 7th draft, writing is hard. And I had to write 6 drafts to realize that I needed the 7th one to be my first real draft. And that shows writers that are aspiring to be writers, or writers that finding themselves difficult. Now they could follow you and see, oh, wow. Okay. So it's not just me. We're in the same boat. Like, it is hard. And I'm not having a harder time than other writers, in the sense of like, I suck. You're like, I'm in the same boat as writers on this journey. So that inspires people to follow you and support you and become willing participants in your adventure. So behind the scenes are important, but behind the scenes are not, I just signed an agent, or my book's out, or I just got published. But going in to meet the publisher is the behind the scenes. Taking a picture of walking into the place, behind the scenes. Like, you know what I'm saying? That is okay. Yeah, so failures and leading to are important. So remember, people want to see you succeed. They just don't want to hear about the success. All right. Okay. However, let me go back to this real quick. However, if other people's talk about your successes, that's different. So for example, I talked about, I was on SNL a bunch of times, like behind the scenes stuff, and then background work. But like, I work with SNL when I lived in the city before I moved and before COVID. Talking about working on set again, or like on my way to set, or like, right, got people that followed me and cared about me to start commenting on those posts, going, what episode is it this Saturday? Are you airing? What is the skit? And obviously I can't tell them this stuff because you're not allowed to, give away, because sometimes a skit might be cut. But you can be like, well, this Saturday I'm filming for this Saturday episode, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be on it, whatever the case may be. But then those people would start going, oh, my buddy's going to be on SNL this weekend, or my cousin, or my this or that, or, oh, my mentor is going to be on SNL, whatever the case may be. They're allowed to talk about your successes in that sense. They can go, oh, Thomas J. Bellezza just got signed to so-and-so, or he just got published, or his first book's out. Like, people can say that because that's called third-party interaction, or third-party introduction. That's fine. You can't tell people. Remember, people want to see you succeed. They don't want to hear about it. You can't tell them, but everyone else can. And that's why we talk about our adventure, because then the people who care about us would start saying, oh, so-and-so. Spread the word, as one might say. Engage with your followers. Look, it's a two-way street. If they talk to you, you talk to them, right? But remember, you got to talk to people before they even know you exist. Remember, networking is who you know. Marketing is who knows you and remembers you. So sometimes, if not all the time, you have to make the first step. So if you're trying to build fans, you have to reach out and start becoming interactive. Be seen, be present. You got to make a presence. You can't just be like, I exist on Twitter or X, whatever. I exist on Facebook. I exist on Instagram, and then expect people to find you. You have to make yourself known. You have to interact. And when you interact, allow your brand, your personality, your truth to show through on those interactions. Use visuals. This is a part of the image. A brand is made up of image, a voice, image, and conversation. The voice is your style, your look, anything that has to do with the representation of the physical manifestation of your truth. And then your voice is basically the things that you stand for, the message that you're trying to say. And the message is made up of your missions, morals, and your purposes. Missions are the things you're trying to accomplish that aren't for you, but are for the greater good of the world. What are you trying to solve? What problem are you solving with what you exist with? Your morals is how you present them. So, it's your behavior, the things you stand on. And then your purpose is what's fueling you. It's the reason you do what you do. All right. So when it comes to visuals, and the conversation, by the way, is the back and forth between you and the audience. The visuals, make sure you have a consistency in the visuals, your styles, your looks, your color tones, whatever that is. The way you take your photos is important as well. So, but this also leaks into your novels. If you have a series, make sure the series all look alike, etc., etc. But if you notice, I'm not really talking about the books. When it comes to your social presence, it's not about your books, because your book is going to change unless you're going to write the same exact book every single time, right? So it's your job to build a presence as an author on the social of medias, so people connect to you. So then you could write any kind of book you want. You could write several different books, and then they will go, oh, an author I follow that I respect and like wrote a book. Oh, and I happen to like that book. So if they write another book, I'm going to support that book too, whatever it is. And this is why, even like when I was in music, all right, and then I retired from music and went into acting and comedy and all this stuff. My fan base from my music career followed me into comedy, into acting, and ultimately writing and all these other things. Because you build the relationship, the connection with, all right? And that's why if you see like, I don't want Jared Leto, even though he's a douche, or at least he's perceived as a douche on set, and people don't like that he like goes too method. But Jared Leto is a musician and an actor, and all these things. So people follow him around because they're like, oh, there's something about Jared Leto. But if you're a musician and you do a movie, you're not singing, so why are they following you? Right? If you're an actor and you write a book or a memoir or something like that, why are they following you? Because they're interested in you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not the thing you do. Like, you're not, just being a writer, you're not your book. You exist beyond the book, and you're going to write more than one book, and you're going to continue to write different books with different stories. You might even write different genres eventually. But like Brandon Sanderson people talk about Brandon Sanderson and then they mention his book, right? But they're not like, oh, there's this author, I don't know, he wrote The Way of Kings, and it's real great. It's about the Cosmere. It's a great series. And then you're like, oh, what other books are in it? It's like, well, The Way of Kings is where you should start. And it's like, all right, who's the author? And then like, I think Brandon, like, no one, you know what I'm saying? Because he built such a brand than Sanderson. All right. Number 6. Be authentic. Be your truthful self. Be yourself. Share your real thoughts. And let your personality shine. Readers want to connect with you. They want to know who you are. The more they can have empathy and relate with you as a person, the more likely they are to support you. I would also say that you should have things that you don't share. Like I said earlier in this video, right? I don't share my faith and I don't share my political views. And I try not to let my faith and my political views dictate certain things. But the things I care about is what I present. Another thing, like I tell my clients, I go, look, if you don't want your family to be part of your brand, don't show your family, right? If you have a child, don't show your child. Like, if you're using a child for clout, like, oh, it feels great to be a daughter daddy, or look, here's my daughter, I'm a father now, right? But, if you're known for being somebody who cheats or a playboy, and now you're like, look at my child, like you're using the child for likes, and that is not authentic. So be your authentic self, but know what to not put on the internet and what to put on the internet. You're not obligated to put everything on the internet, but you are obligated to put truth into what you do choose to put into the internet, right? Because truth is what connects us to the empathy. I'm not saying withhold information to lie to the public, but there's certain things that the public is not required to know. No one is required to know my true faith or my true ethnicity or my true this, or like it's no one's business, right? No one's business to know who I'm with. No one's business to know, like, oh, well, like I'm open about my polyamory, about being polyamory. I'm open about that kind of love, right? But I believe in that kind of connection, right? And it's something that I want to show positivity towards, and that I want to show open communication, and I want people to push back against it. I want people to accept things. I want people to say no. I want to create a discourse, because it's important to be like, well, life is different for everybody, and it's important. So there are some things that I do want to talk about openly, but there are other things I don't, and you have to make that choice when being authentic. Just holding that back, like, for example, there were actors back in the day, before it was more openly accepted, who were gay or homosexual, right? Or even Ellen is a great example, right? Like, Ellen coming out should not have been a big deal. It's so insane that was such a big deal, that not only did she get fired, but her career became, for a while, she was the lesbian who got fired, right? And it's like, so like, who cares who you love? Like, right? Like, who cares who the relationship is with? Like, why can't they be gay? Well, actors even before that time were like, they were closeted on purpose. However, they weren't obligated to let the audience or people know that they were gay, but they were hiding, because people at the time, and still some today, are judgmental. But that doesn't mean they were lying. Like, oh, you can't know about this. Right. So it's okay to be your truthful self and know what your hard limits are to what the audience needs to know. But whatever it is you do show, be authentically true. Offer value. This is the thing about having being able to solve a problem and adding something to the world, right? The message. What is the value you bring, right? Because your social media shouldn't just be about self-promotion. It should offer a deeper value, right? Now, as an author, though, we have an advantage of slipping in certain things. For example, sharing writing tips, recommending books, talking about our favorite research finds, or sharing personal insight into our writing life. So outside of being consistent with your message, showing the behind the scenes stuff, you can also add, right? So think about ratio. I'm going to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. I'll tell you why in a second. Offer tips, author writing tips, offer, how you went about doing something. Sometimes authors are like, this is how much I made this year, just to show how like horrible it is. Not everyone makes 7 figures or 8 figures. Sometimes we make $1,000 for the year. That's just what it is. That's still offering value, because it's allowing us to put into perspective certain things. When I talk about ratio, if everything you post is buy my book, your brand is about buy my book, and that'll push people away. If all you post is helpful tips on how to write, you become the writing coach. If all you do is talk about like what books you like, oh, I like these books, you become the book reviewer. So if you want to allow your brand to be a mixture of things, you have to think about the ratio and allow yourself to mix things up. If you follow my social media, you'll see that I mix things up. There's, YouTube is specifically for the right mindset. So you're going to see helpful tips, whatever the case may be. I try to do community posts that adjust that, so there's a little bit more variety. And of course, I do the interviews with different authors. And my message here is always about helpful. And this is why I do this, right? But if you go to Facebook and the other ones, you'll see that I share people's stuff and that the stuff I post is a variety of things, from me dealing with my chronic depression to my new issue over the last couple of years, the restricted lung disease, my thoughts and opinions on things, whatever the case may be. So you see variety. So the offering of value is important, but make sure that you have a ratio difference and you allow other aspects of your world to show through, including, I finished my book. It's available on Amazon. You're allowed to do that. Just ratio it. I always tell people 4 8 posts, for every 4 to 8 posts, you're allowed to say buy my book. But if every post or every other post is buy my book, you're going to push people away. Because value is, what does someone get from experiencing your brand? Value is not, oh, they have a book. If that makes sense. All right. Hashtags used to be a big thing. They're not as big anymore, so use them strategically. Don't put them on every single post. A really smart thing with hashtags, though, is if you do your research on hashtags, look for hashtags, especially if you're starting out, that have like 1,000 or less connections to the hashtag. I might even go 500 or less. And the reason is because the less people who use that hashtag, the more likely you'll be seen at the top. You know what I'm saying? But if you go to a hashtag that has 1 million plus and it's just continuing to grow, you're going to be lost within a second. It's going to, you're not going to be connected to that hashtag. So think about that. Do some popular ones, do some mediocre ones, and do some like really quote unquote weak ones. Right. But more importantly, your post shouldn't be like filled with hashtags, because that's more likely going to be damaging. So use them sparingly and strategically. All right. 9, most importantly, collaborate with others. It's all about working together. It's all about, here's an example. So do joint live sessions, right? Where you get 3 or 4 people together and you do live session. You can rotate that. Do collaborations. If you live near each other, hang out, do events, get people to come together, right? Do a monthly dinner where, like, you go to a restaurant, you pull a couple tables together, and and you try to get that group to grow and grow and grow. Do networking events, do library events. Barnes and Nobles, I think you could talk to about doing author events. Maybe think about pulling your money together, because if there are 10 people and you all put $500 in, that's $5,000. Take that $5,000, hire a PR company to handle like marketing for a collective brand. Like, what is your mission? And allow them to push that mission. And now you get to bring awareness to all the authors through one particular brand. Right? You could do that. Another thing is you take that $5,000 and put together a big event and use that money to help market it and get people to that event. So, and that's just $500. Imagine it was 1,000. What's 10 times 1,000? That's $10,000. 10 authors, $1,000 is 10 grand. That's what I used to do back in the music day, right? That's how you make money. You put money into doing these shows. Right? So think about how you could collaborate and become proactive in your community. And of course, 10, set your boundaries. All right. Social media can be overwhelming, so it's important to set boundaries. Decide how much time you want to spend on social media. It's easy to fall into a trap of endless scrolling or feeling pressured to respond immediately to every comment, but you need to set boundaries. For me, I have a social media block, just like I have a writing block, just like I have a networking block, just like I have a marketing block, etc. Allow yourself to have a block that's dedicated to it. Can you interact with it throughout the day? Absolutely. Absolutely. But have a block where it's a focus interaction. This is where you're going to maybe write out your posts for the month. This is where you're going to schedule stuff, right? And you control it. Remember, you control things. Things do not control you. Final thoughts. Social media is a fantastic way to connect with readers and share your journey, but it works best when approached with intention and balance. All right. By using these 10 tips, I hope you can create an online presence that is engaging, truthful to who you are, and a reflection of who you are as a writer. Because remember, social media should enhance your writing journey, not detract from it. So find what works for you and enjoy the process of building your author brand. Building an online presence takes time, and it's okay if your social media journey doesn't look like everyone else's. Don't be afraid to think outside the box and experiment with new types of content that reflect your unique personality. The key is always and completely to have fun, and have fun often. You have to embrace what works for you and the learning process, and let your creativity guide you. Each post you share is another opportunity to discover your voice as a writer and to connect with people who are excited about your work. Remember, there are no strict rules here. Find what works truthfully for you and let that shine through. Next video in the series 10 writing habits of successful authors. Question: do you have any social media tips that you find helpful for yourself? Let us know in the comments below. Help us elevate one another as a community. Like what you saw today, but you just haven't done it so far, maybe you should subscribe. Hit the bell icon, so you don't miss that. Other than that, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.